ॐ नमो नारायणाय ॐ नमो नारायणाय
Asmad Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmad Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmad Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. So continuing on with Prapanna Parijata, chapter 5, on the salvific activities of God. Text 1. One who has, through the grace of the Guru, so our last chapter was all about the teacher, the spiritual teacher, the Guru, received the teaching on subservience to God, Sheshatva. Shesha means, there's a footnote here which we'll have a look at, but Shesha means a servant of God, and recognizes the faults inherent in all happiness derived from sense gratification, who has complete devotion to Vishnu, being indifferent from other deities, who desires only to obtain Vishnu, is called a Vaishnava. Okay, so text 1, we're giving a definition of who's a Vaishnava. Let's look at we have 3 footnotes here, 29, 30, and 31, about Sheshatva, about happiness from sense gratification, and about who's a Vaishnava. So, footnote 29, a Shesha is defined as something that is completely dependent upon and whose sole existence is for the benefit of another. I would say also not just completely dependent upon, but supported by the Sheshi. The Sheshi, so think of Shesha as servant, think of, or slave, and Sheshi as master. A Sheshi is defined as one who possesses Sheshas, or servants, right, or things that that help to maintain it, and maintains and preserves them for his own purposes, that he maintains and preserves. According to Vishishtadvaita philosophy, the relationship between Ishvara, God, and the Jiva, the individual soul, right? Shesha, Sheshi, it should be Sheshi, Shesha, in case, it should be Jiva and Ishvara, is Shesha, Sheshi, right? Because Ishvara, God, is Sheshi, is like the relationship between the king and the kingdom. The king is not a king without a kingdom to rule, and the kingdom, on the other hand, exists to nourish and maintain the king. It is a symbiotic and mutually dependent relationship, which is eternal. So that's explaining the Shesha, Sheshi Bhava. Shesha again means the servant, Sheshi meaning the master, right? Which is understood in Vishishtadvaita philosophy as the relationship between Chit and Achit and Ishvara. Ishvara meaning God, and the material world, and the jivas, not just the jivas. Here it talks about the jivas, the individual souls, but it also refers to, Shesha is also referring to the universe of matter. So both matter, the matter of the universe and the individual souls, are both meant for serving God. All right, footnote 30. According to Vedanta Deshikan, all forms of material pleasure and happiness and all material goals have 7 defects known as sapta dosha. Dosha means faults, so sapta meaning 7. These are: 1, alpa, their end results are trivial. Alpa means small, right? Ashtira, they are transient and impermanent. Asukara, not easily obtained. They require much effort and are time consuming. 4, asukavasana, ultimately ending in grief and disappointments. 5, dukhanvita, accompanied by disappointments and supported only by struggle. 6, anuchitam, incompatible with our essential being. What's our essential being? Again, from the last footnote, we are Sheshas. So we are meant to serve God. We are meant for his service, and we are simply meant for him, and we're his part. And so any other goals that we might have material goals are incompatible with our essential nature as eternal servants only to God. Okay, so 7, Abhimana Mula, they're based on a false sense of self and lead to further perpetuation of this delusive sense of identity, which is more or less similar to 6. Okay, 7. Anyway, so those are the 7 doshas spoken about by Vedanta Deshika about material pleasure and happiness in this world and material goals. So, footnote 31. Vaishnavas are again divided into 2 categories, which will now be explained later. Okay, so getting back to the text, this is all coming out of the first verse. Second verse, the ekanti, or the devotee who is singly focused on God, is one who comes to the conclusion that bhakti or devotion is ineffective for liberation, as is the other devatas, worship of other devatas or other deities. Anya devatas, other deities. Right. So the Ekanta Vaishnava, the one-pointed Vaishnava, right, sees that not only worship of other gods or minor deities are ineffective for liberation, but even bhakti itself is ineffective, which means that we should understand that prapatti or surrender, sharanagati, is the only method. Sense gratification is capable of delivering happiness, and Krishna as the means to attain Krishna himself, and Krishna as the means to attain Krishna himself. So whether one wants to derive sense gratification or one wants to attain liberation and attain Krishna himself as a personal relationship serving the Lord eternally, either one of those goals, surrender is the best way. Surrender is the best way, and not bhakti. So the Parama Ekanti, Parama Ekanti is maybe a step above the Ekanti, above the one-pointed devotional person. The Parama Ekanti is one who concludes that the various methods to attain moksha, all deities other than Krishna, sense pleasures, bhakti, and even property to Krishna, are all equal in pertaining to the realm of conditioning, and who has the exclusive vision of the Lord as master. Okay, so let's just go through that again. The Paramikanti is one who concludes that the various methods to attain moksha, various methods, all the deities other than Krishna, right, other devatas, right, sense pleasures, bhakti, and even property to Krishna are all equal in pertaining to the realm of conditioning, and who has the exclusive vision of the Lord as master. Okay, so I'm not quite getting the point of this verse exactly, but all these things can be lumped together. Even property is not the way to attain the Lord. It's not a property is the way to attain the Lord. The Lord is the means himself, and not the property, not bhakti, not sensual pleasures, not all these other deities, etc. So, verse 4, fully realizing subservience to the Lord, his entire life is spent only in the service of his holy feet, the Lord's holy feet, and spends his time thinking of how he can be of useful service, because the essential nature of the Shesha, the servant, is to serve the master, and therefore he should simply spend his time in his life thinking about how to perform some useful service for the Lord. So he first of all has to realize his subservience to the Lord, and then think of how to serve the Lord and actually serve the Lord. His entire life spent in the service of his holy feet means when we say serve the Lord's feet, we're talking about serve the Lord totally, like that. The reason why his feet are spoken of here is like in Mumukshapati, it talks about the feet being the place where we surrender unto. We go down to the lowest part of the Lord's body. It's symbolic of surrendering to the Lord, falling at his feet. Because the word nyasa means to play, sort of to put yourself at the feet of the Lord, or to become subservient in that way. So text 5, learning from the Guru and the meaning of the root mantra or the Mula mantra in Sanskrit is Om Namo Narayanaya, that is the Astakshara mantra, as well as being of the same import as the Dvaya mantra, Sriman Narayana Charano Sharanam Prapadye Srimate Narayanaya Namaha, right? The mantra of Sharanagati, the mantra of Prapati, the mantra of surrender. And taking refuge in Hari alone, one shall worship him with that mantra. Okay, one should worship, learning from the Guru the meaning of the root mantra as being the same as the import. It seems to indicate here that one should worship. The idea here is that one should worship with the Dvaya mantra. We would have to look at the Sanskrit for this and see exactly what he's mean. Does he mean worship with the root mantra or worship with the Mula mantra or the Dvaya mantra? Seems to be saying worship with the Dvaya mantra after having understood the meaning of the Mula mantra. Text verse 6 and 7. One shall make offerings with this root mantra daily 3 times according to one's ability. Now in the next verse seems to be saying use the Mula mantra to make offerings. Okay, this mantra is the essence of the teachings of the Vedanta, and it enables one to cross the ocean of samsara, which is attain moksha. And this is just defined in the Narayana Upanishad. It says Om Namo Narayana iti mantra upasakaha, that person who worships with the Om Namo Narayana mantra, Vaikunta Bhuvana Lokam Gamishati, he will go to Vaikunta Lokam, which means liberation, which means moksha, eternal service to the Lord. Of all the mantras, that is the supreme mantra. Right? So we're talking about the Mula mantra is the supreme mantra. It is the most secret of all secrets and is the purest of the pure. It is eternal. Okay. So this is describing about the Mula mantra. Astakshara mantra. Text 8. By those who are desirous of liberation, it should be recited constantly as it produces worldly enjoyment, bhukti, and final liberation, mukti. By those who are desirous of liberation, they're the mumukshus. By the Vaishnavas, it is worthy of constant recitations as fostering knowledge, jnana, and devotion, bhakti. Now, again, it seems to be a little unclear. Here it seems to be clear that we're talking about the repetition of the Astakshara mantra is important, right? To be constantly chanting the Astakshara mantra. But some people say the Dvaya mantra. Let's see, let's go on. Text 9. It is the divine source of all mantras. Again, sounds like the Mula mantra, right? The root mantra, Om Namo Narayanaya, and is capable of destroying all sins. With a focused mind, one should recite it diligently. Good. Okay, so that's clear. Text 10 and 11. Vishvaksena, who is the secretary or the head of the commander of Lord Vishnu's hosts or army, and who is part of the Sri Vaishnava Guru Parampara, coming after the Supreme Lord, after Sri Devi, Mahalakshmi, and then Vishvaksena's third, right? So Vishvaksena, the commander of hosts, delivered an injunction to Gajanana, the elephant-faced god, and other hosts. Gajanana is one of his followers, one of his ganas, right? And he has an elephant face. Sometimes called in Tamil Tumbikai Alwar. So sometimes people mistake this. They see a deity which appears to be like Ganesh. He has a elephant face, and but instead of the noose and the axe in his hands he has the conch and the discus like Vishnu. So he's a Vaishnava and he's an eternal. And some people may say the Vaikunta form of Ganesh. He's not really the Vaikunta form of Ganesh, but his name is Gajanana and he's a Gana of Vishvaksena. I think I've seen a deity of Gajanana in the Sri Rangam temple in the shrine of Vishvaksena, like that. Although some people, some Vaishnavas, some Sri Vaishnavas may say that this is not part of Sri Vaishnava understanding, but here we see he's alluded to, he's mentioned, so we have to accept it. Okay, so Gajanana. So Gajanana and other hosts are being told by Vishvaksena, their commander, that the Vaishnavas should always make offerings and other acts of devotion with either this mantra, meaning the Mula mantra, Om Namo Narayanaya, or the Dwaya mantra, right? The Sriman Narayana Charanosharam Pavadishmati Narayanaya Namaha mantra, preceded by salutation to his guru. So the way to make an offering, first of all, salute the Guru Parampara or the Guru, and think that you are that the Guru is making the offering, and you are just simply doing it on his behalf. And then after saluting the Guru, then use either the Astakshara mantra Om Namo Narayana or the Dwaya mantra to make the offerings to the Lord. And this apparently is coming from Vishwaksena Samhita. I think it'll be spoken of maybe later. It will say that this story of Vishwaksena giving this instruction to his followers to do this in this way is coming from the Pancharatra Agama. There's one book called Vishwaksena Samhita, which is, of course, giving us instructions by Vishwaksena. Verse 12, only after having put on the indications of a Vaishnava shall Hari be worshipped. Okay, so this is some sort of injunction here. We don't know where it's coming from exactly. We don't know the source, but the indications of a Vaishnava, he's going to explain about what are the indications of a Vaishnava. How do we know somebody's a Vaishnava? The sage Vyasa, meaning Veda Vyasa, declares that only those of all castes who have applied the symbols of Vaishnava should make offerings, serve and adore Madhava. So in Sri Vaishnavism and in Pancharatra, the school of Pancharatra is that somebody should have gone through the Panchasamskara and they should have obtained the symbols of a Vaishnava internally and externally. And at that time, they become qualified to perform the yaga or the worship. Yaga means sacrifice, worship of God, like that. So this is part of the Panchasamskara. The Panchasamskara is the 5 things in the Panchasamskara, which is the Vaishnava initiation, right? Is Tapa Pundra Tato Nama Mantro Yagastya Panchamaha. These 5 things, like that. So the it's alluded to here. Text 13. These indications are said to be of 2 kinds, the external and the internal. The signs of the conch and discus, etc., right, which are branded on the shoulders of the initiate, right, are external, and the absence of selfish desire and others, there's a footnote here explaining others, are internal. So there's internal ideas, there's internal indications of Vaishnavism, of being a Vaishnava. Text 14, from all the Upanishads, the wearing of the insignia of the conch and discus is generally established. So he's saying that there's proof coming in the different Upanishads that one should bear the symbols of conch and disc on the body as a symbol of being a Vaishnava. The Atharva Upanishad means it's attached to the Atharva Veda. So exactly which one he's speaking about, we don't know, but there should be some footnote if we look at it at the Sanskrit version of this book. Specifically describes the wearing of these insignia for the discerning ones. Text 15, the knowers of the truth, Brahmavit, those who know Brahman the Supreme, right, know well that a Vipra, again, a learned scholar, right, shall bear on his right arm the brand of the discus and on his left that of the conch. Texts 16 and 17, if there be a doubt as to whether this practice of branding is Vedic, right, and there's a footnote here, we shall say, I didn't look at the previous footnote. Okay, we shall say that the same doubt can be applied to the entire corpus of mantras as well. Okay, so this is a little bit of whataboutism here. We're saying that those people who doubt that the branding of the symbols of Vishnu is a Vedic thing, they could also doubt all the different mantras that we have, all the different mantras like Dwaya mantra, even Astakshara mantra, whatever it is. If great sages have accepted the mantras as being authoritative, then this practice too cannot be doubted. So if doubt still persists, then the Padma and Agneya, meaning Agni Puranas, with raised arms, declare the practice to be authorized. So he's saying here that there are quotes in Padma and Agni Puranas about the authoritativeness of accepting the branded marks of conch and discus on the body. and there may be some Vedic statement as well. We'll have a look at the footnotes soon. So text 18 and 19, by those who are advanced in devotion, bhakti, and conviction, shraddha, the 5 weapons of Vishnu are to be worn separately in specific places on the body. So this is a little bit new. This is also mentioned in Hari Bhakti Vilas, the book of Vaishnava ritualism for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And these the 5 weapons of the Lord are to be actually worn on the body, maybe branded on the body. So here's the different places where they're supposed to be branded. The forehead, the mace or the gada is to be worn. On the head, the bow, sharanga. On the middle of the chest, the sword, nandaka, and on the 2 arms, conch and discus. So here we have, let's see, what do we have? We have the mace, the bow, the sword, the conch, and the discus. Okay, and they're the different places. So there's a mention of that in Hari Bhakti Vilas. 20, verse 20. The metallic brands of the weapons are to be heated in the fire, meaning a yagya or a sacrificial fire, and in which we've invoked these different weapons of the Lord with different mantras, then applied to the body while reciting their specific mantras. Even the Venerable Manu has affirmed this, and there's a footnote for that. So let's have a look at these different footnotes. Back up here in text 13, we had some discussion of internal qualities of a Vaishnava. As giving up the six afflictive emotions, which are kama, self-desire, krodha, anger, moha, delusion, mada, hubris, lobha, parsimony, right? So hubris means pride, and parsimony means parsimony means miserliness, being a miser. Matsarya, malicious envy or envy, right? So these are things which Vaishnavas internally give up these qualities. So we know somebody's a Vaishnava because they've given up these wrong emotions. And 33, footnote 33 was from text 16, talking about how there's a quotation in the Vedas and also in the Agni and Padma Puranas about the symbols of Vishnu being branded on the body. The Vaishnava practice of branding the insignia of the conch and discus on the arms of initiates is the subject of much controversy. Actually, Nimbarka Vaishnava is accepted. It's accepted in Hari Bhakti Vilas of Gaudiya Vaishnavas. It's also accepted by Sri Vaishnavas and also by Madhva Vaishnavas. So there we see most of the Vaishnava Sampradayas accepted, even the Gaudiyas. So, but we see, for instance, certain other groups, Hindu groups like Shaktas may not accept it because in Devi Bhagavad Purana it says if somebody does this, they go to hell. But we dismiss this as not being a Vaishnava literature, not being Vaishnava scripture, and not being acceptable, right? So it is definitely a tantric practice. Tantric meaning Vaishnava tantra, right? The Vaishnava tantras or the ways of worshiping Lord Vishnu are usually Vaikanasa and Pancharatra Agama, specifically Pancharatra Agama. But so the Vaikanasans also do it, but the way they do it is a little different. They infuse with the mantras of the conch and the discus into sweet rice and give that to the pregnant mother before the child is born. So, but otherwise the branding is done with the hot brands. Some Vaishnavas, there's some Vaishnavas who do it with cold with sandalwood paste or gopi chandan or something like that. There's a possibility that people do it like that also in some sampradayas. So it's definitely a tantric practice which is claimed by Vaishnavacharyas to be advocated and endorsed by the Vedas as well. This is disputed by many Vedic scholars who denounce the practice. Okay, and then the footnote 34 was with regard to the quotation where Manu says it's acceptable or it should be done, and the exact quotation in Manu is not found. So we don't know where that's coming from. It may be some thing which is in some texts of we have to look in a critical edition of Manu to see if we can find a scriptural pramana for that, or proof. Text 21, the one who daily wears the vertical insignia, urdhva pundram, meaning the tilak, right, and the discus, chakra, will experience an increase in auspiciousness and a decrease in inauspiciousness. This seems to be a quotation. Let's just look at the footnotes on this, 35 and 36. The vertical insignia, the two white lines drawn on the forehead, representative of the feet of Lord Vishnu. In the case of northern Sri Vaishnavas, there's one, it's 1 foot with the heel, like a U shape. And in the case of the southern Sri Vaishnavas, the southern school of Sri Vaishnavism, it's actually 2 feet sitting on a pitam, sitting on a dais. With the central red, the central red line, or the red central line, which represents Lakshmi, Sri Devi. Women wear a central red line with a tiny white line underneath, which can be straight or can be slightly curved. And that's the way that Urdhva Pundra looks like. So then 36, the discus would also include the other weapons as well. So here, where in this verse 21, where it says discus, it also includes, it means discus, etc. It means discus and others, and other weapons of the Lord. Text 22 and 23, the time for applying the discus and other insignia are mentioned by Bhagawan, or the Lord, in the Pancharatra Shastra, which is the Pancharatra Agama, the Vaishnava Tantra. Before 16 years of age is the most favorable time, until the 50th year is middling, and afterwards is the lowest. So here they're saying that this should be done in a young age, if possible. If it's done in middle age, then it's okay. It's middling, and if it's done in old age, then this is considered to be the lowest. So many times these things are categorized into Uttama, Madhyama, Kanishta. Right, the best, not so good, but not so bad, and the lowest. So such is the determination of the propitious time. All the months of the year, excepting 2 months of the rainy season, are auspicious. So sometimes we hear of a rainy season in India having 4 months, but actually in the Indian calendar, there's actually 6 seasons, not 4, and 2 months. 2 months represents a season. So there is a specific rainy season of 2 months. And in those months, usually this is not to be done. The branding of the symbols is not to be done. We can see amongst Madhva Vaishnavas, what they do is at the beginning of the Chaturmasya, which is the 4 months of the rainy season, but is the rainy season. At the beginning, they do it on Shayana Ekadasi, the day when the Lord lies down to sleep, which is the beginning of Chaturmasya, and they do the branding of the symbols of Vishnu. This is also when it's supposed to be done in Hari Bhakti Vilas. And so therefore, it's not done after that time, during Chaturmasya, which is being described here. Text 24, in the Pancharatra, I just prescribed in great detail the place on the body, and there's a footnote, the measurement, there's a footnote, and the material of Urdhva Pundra or Tilaka, Vaishnava Tilaka markings. According to this prescription, it should be applied. We'll see that later. Text 25, the Urdhva Pundra should be painted with white clay produced on the top of a sacred mountain and other such holy places, especially by the Vaishnavas. Text 26, the one who wears a pure and white Urdhva Pundram with nice interspace, right, where the line for Lakshmi is, creates for me a pure temple in which to dwell the mind. Text 27, keeping the heart unsullied by craving and the other afflictive emotions, and we'll hear about those, maintaining speech uncontaminated by falsehood or lying, etc., and preserving a body unimpaired by aggression and the rest, are the 3 ways in which Krishna is worshipped. So this is talking about internal aspects of how we should only worship Krishna if we give up these contaminating emotions and lying and not being aggressive, etc. All right, so then text 28, the 8 kinds of flowers. Now, these are allegorical flowers that are dear to Vishnu because they're also external actual flowers which are dear to Vishnu. But here he's talking about allegorical flowers and should perpetually be offered are non-injury or ahimsa in word, deed, or thought, right? Control of the senses, kindness, kindness of all beings, especially forgiveness, knowledge, self-discipline, meditation, and truth. Have we got more than 8 there? We may have more than 8 there. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So we're counting non-injury in word, thought, and deed as only one flower. Okay. And there's a Sanskrit verse for this, which is very nice and sometimes is used in meditation or in deity worship. So text 30 and 32. Thus, with the body adorned with the external and internal insignia, having bathed in holy waters and offered libations of water to the devas, the ancestors, and the sages. So when we take a ritual bath, usually we meditate on the water being holy, coming from the Lord's lotus feet, and then at the end of the bath, there's a ritual called Tarpana where we offer water to. It's called Deva Rishi Pitri Tarpana, where we offer to the devas, the means the lords, the god, different forms of God, and the sages and the ancestors, as ordained in the shastras, in the scriptures, having diligently recited the Mula mantra 108 times. Right, so maybe during bath or either during bath or after bath or as part of this tarpana, right? The Mula Mantra Om Namo Narayana, having prepared all the offerings of touch. And there's a footnote, we'll understand what that means in the footnote. Some sparshika, and the end of this verse is of service, opacharika, right? Of activity, abhyavaharika, and having completed the decoration of the place of worship, Yaga Bhumi, Yaga means sacrifice, Bhumi. Yaga Bhumi means either the place we're going to perform sacrifice, or it can mean the deity room in the temple or in the house. One should worship Vishnu according to the routine established by Ramanuja. And there's a footnote about that too. So let's have a look at the footnotes for this page. Right, so again, speaking about the Urdhva Pundra or the Tilak of the Vaishnavas, footnote 35, the vertical insignia, which I think we read this before, that are 2 white lines drawn on the forehead representative of the feet of the Lord, and a central red line which represents Lakshmi. Women wear the central red line with a tiny white line underneath. The next one, the discus, would also be included. Other weapons would also be included as well. We looked at those footnotes before. Text 37 talks about where these different Urdhva Pundras are put on the body. So there are 12 places on the body. Some people say 13, but they count the top of the head as the 13th one. But anyway, 12 representing with which are associated with the upavyuhas of the Lord. The vyuha, the Lord is one. He separates himself into 4, called the Chatuvyuha. In the Pancharatra, he describes that. The Pancharatra is Vasudeva, Sankarsana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. These are the 4 forms that the Lord expands into. And then from those 4 forms, 3 other forms come from each one of those 4, making 12 upavyuhas or smaller vyuhas, which are Keshava, Narayana, Madhava, Vishnu, Madhusudana, Trivikrama, Vamana, Sridhara, Rishikesha, Padmanabha, and Damodara. Okay, and these are the forms associated with the Urdhva Pundra Tilak of the Vaishnavas. Okay, so there are 12 places on the body in which these insignia are drawn. The forehead, 1, the front, in the front of the body, right? In the front of the body, there's 1, 2, 3. And then the 2 sides, so we're up to 4 now. The 2 sides, 5, 6. Then the nape of the neck, back nape of the neck, back the the nape of the neck, the chest. Oh, I see. So it's funny. So Keshava Narayana Madhava Govinda. In this is not exactly the order that we see people use to put them on, but anyway, the nape of the neck, the chest, the two biceps, and the front sides of the abdomen. And the lower back. Okay, so we should really see a diagram of this, but Keshava Narayana Madhava Govinda Vishnu Madhusudana Trikrama Vamana Sridhara Rishikesha Padmanabha and Damodara up. These are the 12. The two vertical lines should be of the thickness of the two vertical lines should be of the thickness of the forefinger at least. So the forefinger or the index finger, like this, the thickness of the forefinger. Some people say 1 inch wide or 1 finger wide, 1 anguli wide is the thing. The sacred mountain of Melkote in Karnataka state near Mysore, where Ramanuja spent his many years in exile, has got some of that white clay, and there are other places where the white clay comes from that's used in tilak. Smartas and northern Vaishnavas use the yellowish or tan sort of clay called Gopi Chandana, which comes from Dwarka, to draw their Urdhva Pundrams. 41. Now, where was 41 talks about the afflictive emotions, which we already talked about, like that. See the footnote 31. The other contaminants of speech, apart from lying, are malicious gossip, verbal abuse, giving deceptive speeches. 43, the sins of the body are causing injury directly or indirectly to other living beings, sexual misconduct, not rendering help to others in time of their need, and serving evil people. 44, text footnote 44, offerings consisting of oil bath, tooth cleaning, bathing with powders, smearing with turmeric, offering of clothing, unguents, meaning perfume, scent, and garlands. These are what are called here some sparshika. These are offerings in which we touch the deity. We touch things on the deity. They call some sparshika. Looking down, let's continue with the footnotes here. Down because we did that whole thing. The offerings of mirror, fan, parasol or umbrella, a vessel overflowing, incense, lamp, etc. These are called upacharika. And then offerings that we make, which are of activities, consist of all manner of cooked food offerings. Well, I wouldn't say that. Okay. Activities, abhyavarikam. Activities would be like praying, bowing down, offering prayers and things like that. So that's my commentary here. And having completed the decoration of the place, yaga bhumi. So normally before we do puja, we decorate the place with some kolam or rangavali decorations on the ground. Yaga bhumi literally means the place of performance of Vedic yajnas, also known as yajnas, also known as yagas. Usually a yaga is a bigger sacrifice, a yajnas maybe smaller. In the tantric tradition, the puja ceremony took the place of Vedic fire offerings. So we have the Shrauta and the Smarta rituals of fire sacrifice, which have become the tantric ones, the pancharatric sacrifices. So, and then Ramanuja composed a work called Nitya Grantha, in which he gives the details of the daily liturgy or puja program. Okay, so that's all the footnotes from text 32. So going on to text 33, just as a servant having great love for the king tries to please him, in the same way, one should try to please one's own Lord, free from fear, through circumambulation, pradakshina, and by prostrations, namaskara, and praise, stotra, approved by the Ekantis, by the focused devotees of God. So, text 34. In due course of time, as one develops the entire process of bhakti yoga as taught by Varaha to Agastya, in what scripture I don't know, along with all its accessories should be diligently practiced. Okay, so here somebody might say, well, here you're talking about bhakti yoga practicing bhakti yoga, but the process of bhakti yoga is being practiced not as a means, not as a sadhana, but as a sadhya, as an end, as a goal. And the goal of prapadya or surrender to God is to let God take care of the means to liberation and simply perform devotional acts to God, which can be called bhakti yoga or simply just bhakti, and to do these as a goal in themselves and simply to please him and not with any idea to get anything in return. So text 35 to 37, the 8 kinds of bhakti are: 1, maternal affection for other devotees, rejoicing in their worship, worship of one's self, ahangropasana, right? Worship of one's self, avoidance of we have to think of ourselves as servants of the Lord and understand our true nature and our relationship with God. Avoidance of all ostentation in ceremonies, devotion to the listening to stories about his pastimes, experiencing emotional symptoms when hearing such stories, such as changes in voice, tears, and trembling, thinking of him daily, and mindfulness of never making a living from devotional service to him. If these 8 forms of devotion exist, even in a mlecha, meaning a barbarian, right, he should be regarded as the holiest of Brahmins, priestly persons. He is the greatest of the sages. He is a yati meaning a sannyasi or a renounced person, completely renounced, self-controlled renunciate, and a pandit, a fully knowledgeable person. So this so-called barbarian mlecha, like that, if he has these qualities, then he can be considered to have all good qualities. Gifts should be given to him and received from him. He should be venerated just as I am, right? So this is the Lord talking about his own devotees, about those who have surrendered unto him and serve him. It's interesting. It'd be interesting to find out where this quote is from. Text 38 and 39. Shonaka, who's a rishi, who's a sage, has instructed that icons for the purpose of worship, Archa Avatara, should be beautiful images of Vishnu with a joyous face and eyes that inspire love in the beholder. They should be constructed from metals such as gold, silver, etc. So we can say here that they can also be made of stone. Some murtis also get made of wood. If you want the full list of materials that murtis or deities or icons of the Lord can be made out of, we look in the 27th chapter of the 11th canto of the Bhagavad Purana, which lists out 8 materials that the Lord's deity can be made out of. One of which is the mind, so a mental deity is also possible to worship. One should project the Brahman meaning the Supreme Lord, into the icon, right? And then become mentally absorbed in it. So in other words, before worship, one should invoke the Lord to the deity. This is called prana pratishtha. And then after that, worship the Lord in the external deity. Text 40. To the icon alone should one make offerings. To it, one should prostrate. It alone should be served and contemplated upon. Abandoning all impurities or faults, doshas, one should be absorbed in that which is the image of the Supreme Brahman. For text 41, doing whatever little one can, one should dwell in the compound of a temple of Vishnu. In other words, if you don't live in a temple, you should have a temple in your house and make your house like a small temple. This is why the Guru's house is called the Tirumalige, which means like that it's like a palace of the Lord, and with Tiru, with Sri, and it is like a temple. Always living in a Vishnu temple compound, one should serve the enshrined deity in the temple as best one can. So let's have a look at some of the other footnotes that we missed. Anupadi, footnote 49, which was coming in text 33, free from fear here. Different things. One should please one's own Lord, free from fear. And here we're talking about upadi, which means an impediment, means both fear and deceit. So serving the Lord should be done from overwhelming love for him alone, in which there is absolutely no fear either from service imperfectly done, overdone, or even neglected. Right. So this is the idea. So in text 33 here, when he says you should be free from fear when you serve the Lord. So that those fears are divided into three here, as that you should have no fear that your service is imperfect. Right? Somebody sometimes thinks, oh, I shouldn't do a particular service because what if I do it imperfectly? That's an offense. No, do it. Overdone, what that I might overdo it. I might overdo it. Or even if I neglected the service, one day or something like that, I should be fearful of doing service again because somehow it was neglected and I didn't do it sometime. So if one takes upadi as deceit or fear, well, it's fear or deceit. So if you take it as fear, it's understood like this. If you take it as deceit, then it would mean serving the Lord honestly with objects honestly obtained. So in other words, all the items obtained during upadana, when the time of day of the 5 parts of the day, when one, as a follower of Pancharatra or Sri Vaishnavism, collects items which are used in the puja, like flowers or whatever, he should do it in a non-deceitful way. For example, don't steal flowers from somebody else's garden, taking things that belong to others and saying, well, it's okay because I'm going to use them in the Lord's service. No, here that's forbidden. That's considered to be forbidden, because you should not do worship of the Lord with this in your mind, that you did some deceit to get the items to worship him. So here now, text 50, where we talk about where the Malecha devotee or Prapanna, surrenderee, refugee, is spoken of by the Lord himself. The Lord talks about Mlechas. So from Mlecha from Lech to talk confusedly. So the word actually refers to persons who didn't speak some Aryan language, some language in India that was spoken in India wasn't being people who came from outside. Outsiders, they don't speak the same language as you, and so therefore they're called barbarians or mlechas. So that's actually the literal meaning of the word, is to speak some other language and not be understood. So, but it comes to mean barbarian. Anyway, a term of disrespect for non-Aryans who do not, we could say non-Indians, people not from the Vedic culture, who do not conform to the Aryan codes of practice or speak Sanskrit. Nowadays, it's used mostly for foreigners, meaning non-Indians, such as Europeans and Muslims. Yeah, if you collect even if you collect flowers from the forest, right? The forest may belong to somebody, but if the forest doesn't belong to anybody, then collect it. But ultimately, Isa Vasimidam Sarvam, the Isa Upanishad says everything is owned by the Lord. So it's really difficult, if you think about it really closely, to take something which doesn't which belongs to others. Everything belongs to others. We even belong to others. We belong to the Lord. So it's difficult to when we truly think deeply about this, everything belongs to the Lord anyway. So how is it that we can offer things to him? We can't, because they belong to him anyway. So, but we should still this idea of deceit, of taking things honestly obtained, we have to think of it in a more Laukika way, in a more general way, like paying for flowers, or taking flowers from our own garden instead of other people's gardens, etc., etc. So that's usually what it's meant here. Okay, so that's just an explanation of what mleccha means in footnote 50. Footnote 51, the process of icon worship, or the worship of deities, or murti puja, is to first visualize the Lord seated in the lotus of one's heart, in the heart, in the consciousness of the living being. The consciousness in Vedic terms is understood to be in the heart. But so we can think of in the mind, the Lord in the mind, or the Lord in the heart. It's a manasika, or mental deity, like that. This is the Antaryami, or the Paramatma, also one of the five forms of God: Para, Vyuha, Vibhava, Antaryamin, and Archa. The Antaryamin being the mental deity. So from the Lord expands in that way. So from Para, from the ultimate form of the Lord, to the Vyuha, Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, which we talked about before when we talked about the Upavyuhas, which were expansions from those four, the 12, Keshava to Damodar. Right, so then from the Vyuha to the Vibhava are different incarnations of God, like Krishna, Rama, Matsya, Kurma, etc., who come occasionally to this world and preach and kill the demons. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskatam dharma samstapanatayam sambhavami yuge yuge. Protect the devotees, kill the demons, spread dharma, spread the religiosity, the principles of religiosity, by speaking Bhagavad Gita or whatever. And then from the Vibhava, we have the Antaryamin, the mental deity, or the deity within the heart, the Paramatman, right, which is accompanying the Atma, the soul, in all its travels in different births in samsara. And then from the Antaryamin, or the Paramatma, into the external deity, or the Murti, the icon, like that. So the visualization, we meditate first on the Lord in the heart, the Paramatma, and then expand that into then one projects that visualization into the icon, which is called a vahana, or calling him to reside in the icon, for the purpose of making offerings, external offerings, right? After the puja is even internal offerings, right? Some of the internal manasic puja can be done before this. Right, after the puja is completed, the deity is then reabsorbed. This is called visarjanam, right? Or sending back, or absorption back into one's heart, back into the Paramatma, like that. So as the Lord expands, he can also contract back into this, from the Archa Vigraha, from the Archa avatar. He can then return to the Paramatma state, like that. So that's a situation of how we rationalize and understand the process of Murti Puja, or external worship of a deity or icon. So continuing on with the last few verses here, text 42. One should never even think to utilize anything belonging to Vishnu as a means for personal gain. So actually everything belongs to Vishnu, and we also belong to Vishnu. So we can't think of using anything for our personal gain. We should think of using everything for the gain of for the purpose of the Lord. That doesn't mean that we should, again, when we're searching in Upadana for items to offer to the Murti in external worship, we shouldn't take from others. Even though those others don't really own their, my neighbor doesn't really own his flowers because everything belongs to God. Some people have this concept, and therefore they take the flower of the neighbors, but this is not correct. Also, we should in normal situations, we have to observe normal etiquettes like that. So we should understand that nothing should be used for own personal gain, whether it be in a great temple, a precious ornament, whether it be a great temple, a precious ornament, or a pleasure enjoyed by the deity. Everything has to be done for the service of the Lord. So text 43, an hour or even a moment passed without thinking of Vasudeva. Here it means Vasudeva, should be a long A. There's no diacritics in this document, but it means the Supreme Lord. It doesn't mean Vasudeva, the father of Krishna, is a loss, right? So a huge opening to disaster, confusion, and distortion of mindfulness. So the idea is that mindfulness is here in a negative way, being defined as always thinking of God, and never forgetting about him. So this is also a statement by, I think, by Madhvacharya in maybe Vishnu Tattva Nirnaya or something like that. He says, Smartavya something Vishnu. Anyway, so always think of Lord Vishnu and never forget him. These two rules are the essence of all rules and regulations, that you should always remember the Lord and never forget him. So text 44, if even a single hour is wasted without meditation, it should be a considered a source of grief similar to that to being robbed by a thief. So when we get robbed, by a thief, we feel very morose, we feel very upset, and we feel some sort of grief, having lost something. And we should feel like this if we are not able to meditate on the Lord 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 30, the whole time. So we should always be thinking of meditating upon this service of the Lord. And it's sometimes very difficult, of course, to do that. But we don't need to be too morose about about or regret if we can't do this. But this is obviously a perfected stage that is to be aspired towards. And the last verse here, verse 45 in this chapter, having exhaustively studied all the scriptures or shastras and examined them again and again, we reach this one ultimate conclusion. That is that Sriman Narayana, Lord Narayana, ought to be continually meditated upon. Again, reiterating the texts 43 and 44, that we should always think of Lord Vishnu and never forget him. And this is the essence of all these instructions, right? So the putting on of tilak, the wearing of external indications, the internal qualities that we have to emulate, of not being angry and not being divisive and not having deceit and not having all these other bad qualities like that. All of this is meant ultimately to always remember the Lord and never forget him at any time.
I wanted to go over that first verse again. Basically, first of all, the definition of the Vaishnava. I found it also interesting later on about that it gives times, etc., for Pancha Samskara, even though really and truly we know it really doesn't matter, but it seems that from a Pancharatric view, there are certain times which is recommended also, and also ages, for a young person to also have Pancha Samskara. I found that quite interesting also. And the other thing is that the chapter itself, the name of the chapter itself, I felt like it didn't really speak so much on that particular topic itself. It spoke more about the qualities of Vaishnava, external, internally, that kind of thing.
Well, we
And
have to, yeah, we have to look. Okay, first of all, we have to look and see if that topic is actually there in the book. If the author has actually put that topic, because sometimes people, when they translate books, they'll make a topic. They'll say that this chapter is about this topic, but it's actually not about this topic. If you read it. So has it got to do with the actions of God, the salvific actions of God? Yeah, everything has to do with that, because when we do our worship, okay, he's doing it through us. Yeah. So to serve, so it can be seen in that light, so we can, I guess I'm being an apologist for the title of the chapter. It can be seen like that. It can be seen that the Lord himself is engaging us in his worship. So it's part of his saving us.
it's because it's interestingly also when you mention about the whole worship and invocation and Visarjanam, that's something also that Chinajir Swami spoke about. And the interesting part that he ended with about, okay, we offer the Bhoga, we show the Bhoga to the Lord for his enjoyment. But he said that when you finish and you do Visarjanam, basically Shayana Divas, not Shayana Divas, Shayanasanam, or Paryankasanam, is that when you now take the prasad, that he eats it through you. Interestingly, he
Okay.
tastes it through you, which is an
Okay.
interesting
Okay.
meditation.
Okay. Well, he's already tasted it, but so there's yaga and there's anuyaga, right?
Right.
So
Yes.
usually the word anuyaga it means anuyaga just means a small sacrifice. Okay.
Yeah.
So the main sacrifice is the yaga, the big sacrifice. So the big sacrifice involves offering things to God like that. Then the Lord, after we do Visarjana, the Lord is back within us, and we offer the
Yes.
food again into the.
Yes.
So I mean, in one sense, should we offer the food again? It's already been offered, right? But in another sense, everything is accepted by the Lord. Everything is accepted by the Lord. He's accepting it in a different way. So
Yes.
he accepts it externally through the deity, and then he accepts it internally as a Paramatman, and we offer it to him with the mantras for the 5 life airs, and
Yes.
he enjoys the anuyaga like that. So
Yes.
we also shouldn't be thinking, oh, now the Lord's enjoyed, right, the boga, and it's become prasadam, and now I'll enjoy. No, now the Lord's enjoyed, and after the Lord's enjoyed, the Lord again in my body will enjoy
Yes.
as
That
a
that's exact
anuyaga,
term.
as the anuyaga.
Exactly. Yeah, he used that exact term, yaga and anuyaga. Yes, very nice. I thought it was a very wonderful meditation, and that's why Vaishnavas really see, the body as a temple of the
Getting
Lord. That's
back,
why Purva
yeah,
Pundaram
and
is
now
there. That's why
getting
everything's
back
there.
to but the mentality, the end of this, I would emphasize the end of the chapter. The first of all, of course, in the beginning, he's talking about different times and places that things can be done. But once again, we know that doing property, there's no times and places and regulations and things like that. So all of these ideas of before you're 16 years old, you should get Panchasamskar, or before 50, or at least before you die. Okay, it doesn't, these things are you know, they're classified as good, better, best, whatever. But we shouldn't really worry about them in terms of property. But we do see even the Northern Sri Vaishnavas, the Wadagalais, they will even attempt to do Panchasamskara in the early years. So just Upanayana will be done, at 7 or 8, right? And right after that, directly after that, the Panchasamskara is done. So that's definitely before 16 years. The Tapapundra is applied, which is mentioned here by both Wadagalais and Tengalais, Northern Sri Vaishnavas and Southern Sri Vaishnavas. And so they do have that idea of doing it early, right? But what's important to remember also is the Panchasamskara is external. So all of these things, Tapa, Pundra, Tatonama, Mantro, these are all external. Yaga can be internal. They can also be external like that. So the thing, and yaga can be yaga and anuyaga, as we said. Okay, so yaga can be internal, external, but the other 4 are really external. They're external things. And in what I want to look at here is, and once again on the Wadagalai side, looking at the Northern Sri Vaishnavas, they don't do the property or the Bharanyasa until later. Now, it will be interesting to see whether anybody, any follower of the Northern school writes something that, Bharanyasa should be done early, not late. It'll be interesting to see, because there may be some people who say that, because when people talk about property, why property should be put off, why it should be done early, like that. I don't see any good argument for doing it late, like that. The only good argument would be that if I do it and then I sin afterwards, then I ruin it. That I ruin it. Therefore it should always be done at the time of death, right before the time of death. But since we know that property isn't philosophically ruined by sinful activity that occurs after property, right? Therefore we should take it as soon as possible. We should do it as soon as possible, like that. But remember, property is the internal. Panchasamskara is the external, like that. So once again, at the end of the chapter, he brings it all back to internal. by saying we should always remember the Lord and never forget him. And this is basically the two main principles like that. So I would say the same thing with the external conch and discus, with the tilak, with all these external things which are mentioned there, or even with the internal things such as emotions, which are subtle but also material. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Matsarya, all these things are subtle, but still material, right? These things are all external. And ultimately, the main point is to always remember God and never forget him. If you can always remember him and his service and never forget him, that's the main point. So I agree with Madhvacharya, but also I agree with Nadaduramal Vatsavaracharya here. In the end, the last three verses are the most important in the whole chapter to me, that the internal is the most important and remembering God. So so you got two people. One person is wearing tilak. One person has got Shankachakra branded on his body. He's chanting the mantras. He's doing the external worship. He's taking the prasadam. He's trying to be a good person and not being deceitful and not having anger and not having pride and miserliness, all these different things, bad qualities, or lying or whatever like that. But these are all external. These are all external things. If there's another person there who is fully focused, maybe he's a barbarian, maybe he's a mlecha, but he's fully focused in his mind. He's serving God, and he's fully focused on God and God in his service, which is better. The internal is better, is definitely better, and that's why when we look at it, for example, usually in a chapter we see at the end we get a summation, or we get the most important point coming, just like in Bhagavad Gita, we get the Charma Sloka right at the end. It's at the end of the book. It doesn't come in the beginning. So we get the most important points there at the end, which cover this, that always remember Lord Vishnu and never forget him, like that. So that's the most important thing. So again, we have to emphasize the internal. If we get the internal right, then the external will naturally. So to me, whether you're wearing tilak or whether you've got the brands or whether you're wearing a dhoti or whether you're, externally even clean like that, we do the Buddha Shuddhi, we have a spiritual body. Well, whatever it is, the internal is much more important than the external, like that. We do the external. We should do the external because the external helps us. Just like a policeman, he can go out on the street and he wears a police uniform and everybody sees him, and then everybody knows, oh, that's a policeman, and they know how to act around a policeman, and he knows how to act with them, like that. So it helps us. It helps us to act correctly and helps others to act correctly towards us, right? But the uniform doesn't mean that we are, just because you might see somebody impersonating a policeman, he puts on the uniform, but inside he's a thief. We've seen this recently. Some people in the United States, they put on something and they put a, ice costume and some border patrol or something like that, and they're actually rascals. They're actually thieves, jackwoods, and in this way, people trust them because of the externals. So what's more important is the internal. And once we get the internal right, the externals will take care of themselves. Well, they don't even need to be there because it's the internal which is more important. So mostly wearing tilak and everything like that, it's for other people. It's like when Christians wear a cross or Jews wear a Star of David. They want other people to see that they're a Christian or a Jew. They know they're Christians and Jews. They want other people to see, like that. So if we wear tilak at all, right, it's meant to show other people, maybe even show the Lord. It's meant as we can even say, well, maybe it's not to show other people, it's as a service to the Lord because he wants us to do that. Okay, like that. But what's more important is that we remember the Lord. If we remember the Lord, that's all that we need to do. So in my opinion, get up, meditate on the different parts of the body, touch with water or whatever like that, and say the names of the Lord, meditate on the Lord being there, like that. After you look in your mirror and put the tilak on in the morning, do you look again? You don't look again. So you don't see it, whether it's there or not. Others see it. It's mostly for other people that we do these things. So the internal is much more important. If I feel if I am always thinking of Lord Vishnu and I'm always thinking to serve him like that, that's much more important than any of these external things.
Great, wonderful. I guess Rangana Priya, that answers your question about the flowers. Everything that belongs to Vishnu anyway. So it's not stealing.
Yes, Swami.
Everything belongs to God, and therefore it's not. See, the thing is, it's not. We're not really offering it back to him anyway. He's offering it to himself. We should meditate that God is working through us, that our Guru is working through us, and God is working through us, and they're the ones who are doing the offering, like that. So we're not really stealing something. You know, we're not really stealing something. If I go into my garden, I think, oh, this rose in my garden belongs to God. You know, it doesn't belong to me. So how can I take it and offer it to God? There may be some people, some saints who think like that, and then they don't touch anything. They just sit there and they just do everything by meditation, which is, again, bringing us back to what he said in the end of the chapter. The internal is much more important than the external. But even the mind is given to us by God. So when we're doing even Manasa Puja or thinking of worshiping God, it's also, the mind is given to us for that purpose, to serve God. So we serve God with our mind, we serve God with external things. Whichever way we do it, everything belongs to him anyway, including us. So he's engaging us in his service. Maybe the book needs to be retranslated and made a little bit more clear, and maybe the critical edition will give us some more actual quotes from where everything comes from, all the pramanas. I'm not satisfied with this version of the PDF. Anyway, I've got a critical edition, but you know, whether I want to bother going through it, you know, because as we talked about before, some of it's a little confusing in the sense that he's saying that there's no qualification for property, but then he's saying all these things about we should do it at this time and we should do it at this place, and so it's somewhat contradictory.
I think Prapanna Pavitranam.
Paritranam, yeah. It may be more clear, and less confused like that. But you see what, you know, after Narada Ramal, Vedanta Deshika comes and he makes it clear his way, and the Tengalais make it clear their way, and it's clear. Then it becomes more clear, you know. But in this time before Vedanta Deshika and Pillai Lokacharya, there's ideas, there's principles, but they haven't really taken them to the extent that they should, to make sure to clearly enunciate what is ultimately to be done or not to be done, or to be understood, let's say. Yeah.
Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo